some of the test activity that has taken place recently. It is not meant to be a pictorial report of the technical aspects of TCOM operations, but rather an illustration of the scope of testing as pertains to the various participating agencies. The XM561 is an excellent example of the testing done by many of TCOM's activities and installations on one item. Here, in service tests at the infantry board, the vehicle is tested for use as a personnel carrier. Going may be a bit rough at times, but any infantry soldier will tell you that it has it all over walking. Service tests will also be conducted by the artillery board for use by that arm, by the Airborne Electronics and Special Warfare Board with emphasis on the air delivery and air drop capabilities, and by the Arctic Test Center to include spring breakup, early thaw, muskeg, and tundra conditions. The Armor Board, which has the primary service test responsibility, will test associated kits, including the frontline ambulance kit. The Tropic Test Center in their service tests determined the endurance, reliability, and mobility of the XM561 in the tropical jungle environment. There always seems to be mud, and Panama is no exception. There is scarcely a vehicle in the modern Army that does not have the ability to swim. For those of you who have not worked with the XM561, the propulsion power in the water comes from the turning wheel. Before the testing is complete on the XM561, the general equipment test activity will also have tested for transportability and will have determined if the vehicle can come ashore on its own power from a landing craft. In the desert around Yuma Proving Ground, tests are conducted to determine high altitude performance, cooling, fuel handling and consumption, and sand mobility. These engineering tests also furnish important information for desert environmental data. In this sequence of film, the Lance surface-to-surface missile is taken by its crew through water and cross-country to a simulated firing site. Now, by the use of a bit of creative license, these pictures, shot at White Sands Missile Range and the surrounding area, tell the story of a Lance firing mission. Supported by Aberdeen Proving Ground, White Sands has conducted certain engineer design tests and will also participate in eventual engineering tests. Once the firing site has been reached, the crew readies the missile for launching. The Artillery Board, which will conduct the eventual service tests, has also participated in some of these engineer design tests. Yuma Proving Ground personnel, in addition to giving support to the engineering tests, have already taken part in the air transport and delivery phase of the engineer tests. During the service test, the Arctic and Tropic Test Centers will conduct environmental testing, and the Airborne Electronics and Special Warfare Board will determine the air delivery and air drop capability of the entire system. The men in this operation, like the men who will conduct the eventual service tests, are representative of the men who would be using the equipment in actual combat. One of the great advantages of TCOM's participation in engineer tests is the amount of data which are gathered and which can be used in later tests. This is true, of course, of not only missile testing, but of almost any testing conducted by TCOM at one of its installations or activities. The XM656 cargo truck follows the same itinerary that many tactical vehicles do in the decom testing site. At Fort Knox, during the winter service testing by the Armor and Engineer Board, the XM656 traverses its share of muddy roads, obstacles such as ditches, and then more of the mud that seems to be present wherever testing takes place. Slicker than the last bunch encountered. Personnel from the Armor Board also participated in the desert environmental testing. One thing different about Yuma Proving Ground, at least during these tests, was the complete lack of mud. In addition to the desert summer and all-season testing, Yuma also conducted high-altitude, dust, 20,000-mile endurance and reliability testing. Back at Fort Knox, the XM656 gets right into the swim of things. The infantry and artillery boards also conducted service tests on the 656 to determine its use as a personnel carrier, a prime mover for the M114A1 howitzer, and as an ammunition transporter. Although the most severe winter tests were conducted at the Arctic Test Center, the XM656 also ran into a bit of snow during cross-country travel at Fort Knox. The XM551, the Sheridan weapon system, formerly called the Sheridan Shillelagh, could be called the glamour item of this film. As compared to the main battle tank, it is light in weight, yet it has enough armor to offer good protection. Its weapon system packs a real punch, and it can be delivered to relatively inaccessible areas by airdrop. In recent service tests, personnel of the Airborne Electronics and Special Warfare Board loaded the XM551 aboard an aircraft which flew to Fort Knox and dropped the vehicle there for Armor Board test personnel to take over. The Armor and Engineer Board, which had the primary responsibility for service testing the Sheridan weapon system, put the vehicle through the usual cross-country and through the mud phases. As part of the same test phase, the AENSW Board simulated a resupply operation. Missiles for the system were flown from Fort Bragg to Fort Knox, airdropped, and then fired from a pilot model that had been dropped earlier the same day. Now, like most Army tactical vehicles, the Sheridan has the ability to swim. It carries its own sideboards or gunnels if you insist on being completely nautical. Now, the Sheridan wouldn't make much of a duck blind, and the anti-aircraft machine gun would be slightly cumbersome when getting a bead on a fast-flying Mallard. However, nobody can deny that it would be good for retrieving. During the winter of 1966-67, the Arctic Test Center will conduct Arctic environmental service testing with some engineering test aspects. Just as a reminder now to all military personnel, the Army is offering cash awards to military personnel for money-saving suggestions. In fact, if you come up with the right suggestion, you could get as much as $25,000. Of course, you might have to settle for only $10,000 or $15,000 on your first try, but it's worth taking a crack at anyway.